Hey Drumheads, tonight I want to do a movie review of the new movie out. It's a blockbuster new movie out called Midway, and it's about the Battle of Midway on June 4th, 1942. And on that day, our naval forces, our fighter pilots with their dive bombers, they they pretty much disabled the Japanese military or the Japanese Navy at Midway Island in the Pacific. And in one day, in one battle, these brave dive bombers, they sunk several aircraft carriers of the Japanese, and in that one day, they turned the tide of World War II in the Pacific. In the one day, our Navy won the control of the Pacific, and you had Admiral Nimitz, who is played by Woody Harrelson. You have, I believe it's Admiral Housley, who is played by Dennis Quaid. And oh my gosh, it is such a great movie. They start off with Pearl Harbor, and it was very much like the movie Pearl Harbor. Maybe even a little more graphic, but I don't know. I would say it was comparable. The bombing of Pearl Harbor, the surprise attack by the Japanese, December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy. It was right along the lines of the depiction of it in the movie Pearl Harbor with Alec Baldwin. And but this, I did notice in Midway, the Battle of Pearl Harbor, and even some of the battle scene, the bombing of Pearl Harbor and some of the battle scenes looked virtual. Like you could tell it was done on a computer, almost like a really high quality video game. Now I'm not putting the movie down; it was still great, but and you get the drift. I mean, it's like you're there, but the bombing of Pearl Harbor and some of the battles look more like virtual reality than like it was shot for real. Also, one thing I wondered was like, on the aircraft carrier scenes, it's like, where did they get all these Corsairs? Where did they get all these Japanese Zeros? Now, I know a lot of them are computer simulated or animated, but like on the live scenes where they've got the guys standing on the deck with all these Corsairs and stuff, I'm like, wow, there can't be that many of them left. I mean, I know the Confederate Railroad, that's a country band, the Confederate Air Force and other groups that restore World War II planes have restored a lot of planes, but still they're getting fewer number all the time. B-17 crashed recently and was burned, all but the tail, completely burned, and killed 11 people that were riding on it, God rest their souls. But anyway, I was just curious about it. I'm like, wow, because if you're rich enough to own a World War II vintage aircraft, most of them are owned by corporations because they're so expensive. They're worth so many millions of dollars and so expensive to maintain. But I'm sure whoever owns these aircraft gets paid a lot of money for the use of them in movies, in World War II films. But it was a great movie, and not only did it show the heroism of the dive bombers, but it showed the heroism, I never really knew about it, of the Codebreakers. These guys, like, one of them predicted, we had information about Pearl Harbor, but it was ignored. Well, the Navy got smart, and they didn't ignore the information from the Codebreakers this time. This guy, he's like in fuzzy robe and fuzzy slippers and Admiral Nimitz was like, I usually don't listen to people in fuzzy slippers, but they say you're a genius. And so this guy and all of his people, they would intercept bits and pieces of Japanese transmissions, and they would put it all together, and they wound up being only 5 minutes and 5 miles off on when and where Japan was going to attack on Midway. So they were heroes of the stories just as much as Jimmy Buffett says in his song "Sending the Old Man Home." To all those crazy Navy flyers and those swell Hawaiian gals. But yeah, they were crazy. And the guy that led, I can't remember his name right off the bat, but the guy that led the attack, I think he's from Jersey, like an Italian kid or a young man. But he was like not West Point, Annapolis graduate, and he could just do like crazy stuff with the airplane. He was almost like an aerobatic stunt pilot with the stuff he could do. It was just amazing. And so yeah, Midway, go check it out, y'all. It's already a blockbuster, and patriotism's running high right now. It's running high under President Trump, and this is a good sign. It's a good sign for the mega landslide that's going to happen next year, because let's face it, the patriotic people that go to see movies like Midway are going to vote for Trump. And I went to the matinee, and you had to have reserve seats. It was packed out, shoulder to shoulder. And it's a great movie. I want people to be more interested in history. So, and except for these guys, I mean, because the Japanese would have probably attacked and invaded the West Coast had Midway not happened. So if it wasn't for these guys, we'd probably be speaking Japanese or German now, and would have a very different life. We would not be the rich capitalist country we are. We would be living under Imperial Japan or Nazi Germany. Those of us who are Christians probably would have never known Christ to begin with, because it would have been banned by either Japan or Germany at that time. Our lives would be so different, and we're so indebted to these heroes, most of who has passed on. Oh, it also showed the Doolittle Raid on Tokyo, because that happened in between Pearl Harbor and Midway. And the Doolittle Raid, is where they flew B-25 bombers off an aircraft carrier and bombed Tokyo without enough fuel to get back, and had to ditch in China. And some of them, were captured and stuff, and and killed. They had to ditch in China. They didn't have enough fuel to fly back. So, and it was just miraculous that they got those B-25s off the carrier anyway, because these are big twin-engine bombers not made to fly off a carrier. And they would have to time it to where the wave pitch, they would have to time it by the wave, just like surfing, you have to time it. They would have to time the wave to when it lifted the bow of the ship. That's when they would take off. If they didn't take off when the bow of the ship was lifted by the wave, they would crash in the water. But just the bow of the ship being tilted upward helped them, be able to get going. Anyway, 5 stars, y'all. Excellent acting. Excellent. They have Japanese subscript. I love that all. And the Japanese actors are great too. I love that all the Japanese communications are in Japanese, and you have to read the subscript. Also, I love that they kept it not politically correct. Okay, the only black pilots in World War II were the Tuskegee Airmen, and there's a great movie about them that I've seen 4 times. Go see it or rent it. Red Tails, starring Cuba Gooding Jr., and that chronicles the Red Tails, the Tuskegee Airmen. But there was no political correctness in this. And for the pictures they showed at the end, the actors they picked for it looked strikingly like the real pilots and characters in the movie. And anyway, it's a great movie. 5 stars. Go see Midway. I would see it again. All right. If y'all like my content, subscribe, and share. I would certainly appreciate it, and I hope you have a blessed night. Peace.